Good evening, guys. Good evening, everyone. A quick sound check. Good evening, everyone. A quick sound check. Great, thanks. Let's just wait for a few more seconds and let all of them join in before we start this session. Last Monday we had a discussion of how we look at the weekly chart and we have the weekly structure in place. And based on the previous week structure, we look at what the auction is doing in the current week and take probable trades and look for further direction. So we have the latest weekly report on screen. So this weekly report is based on what happened in the previous week. That was last Monday to Friday. And weekly, we look at spot charts for the weekly calendar week. And settlement wise, we look at the series chart, which is from Friday to Thursday in Nifty and Thursday to Wednesday in Bank Nifty futures. So what happened last week? How did we do last week in Nifty and Bank Nifty? So last Monday we had spoken about how we had started the week on a weak note because we got this A period selling tail in when it tried to enter the weekly value. So we were looking at more downside because of this rejection, because the A period selling tail shows us that there is some initiative player who wants to push it lower, and we were not getting accepted in previous week's value. So the path of least resistance, the PLR, is was to the downside, which we had discussed on Monday evening also. So after the Monday's auction got over in Nifty, what we did was we made a big liquidation profile on Tuesday. We opened in previous day's balance, and then we left an extension handle in the B period, followed by another one in the C period. So we just swiped through this weekly value of 22nd April to 26th April, uh, tagging the weekly value area low of this week, and then made a long liquidation B-shaped profile. So here there was an interesting thing which happened on Wednesday. On Wednesday, in spot, we left the minutest of failed auction at lows. 22185 was the level where we made a seaside marginal new low in the seaside, and which got rejected, and we went on to get above the IBH. In fact, we closed all above the IBH on that day. So this was a FA which was valid. So how do we trade the failed auction? We had a session on failed auction where we discussed in detail what is a failed auction and what are the conditions for the failed auction, and post a failed auction, how do we trade the failed auction? So it's very simple. Failed auction happens when one of the party has failed. So we look for the other party to take advantage of that situation and move the market in their direction. So the direction is based once measured in terms of 180R and 280R from the failed auction. And how do we trade the failed auction? Below the failed auction, we look to go short. Above the failed auction, we look to go long, irrespective of whether the failed auction is coming at lows or the highs of the day. So in this case, on 8th of May, which was last Wednesday, we had a failed auction on 22185. What happened the next day was we could not sustain above the IBH of Wednesday. So for a failed auction to be in play, it needs to remain above the IBH of that particular day, because that is what is making it a failed auction. But we were not able to stay above the 22291 level on 9th, and in fact we left an A period selling tail, and although we were above the failed auction for the IB, the initial balance, in the C side we broke below that failed auction. In fact, we left an extension handle at 22188. So there it was very clearly showing that the failed auction, which actually had to get buyers coming back, was giving up, and sellers had broken that failed auction with an extension handle. So not just that, uh, that day, the 9th of May, we went on to give a pullback high in the G period, and that pullback high stopped right at the 22186 level. So it gave us double confirmation that now the failed auction is acting as a supply point, as a resistance. So we did the downside move from this negated failed auction of 180R. I'll just give you the reference, the levels of the 180R. So from 22185, the 180R on the downside was coming to 21955, which we tagged the very next day. So what happened after that is on Friday, we made a nice balance. So here on this day, if we would have remained below the 21954, which was the 180R target of the failed auction, we could have looked for the 280R objective. The 280R objective from that failed auction of 22185 was coming to 21724. In fact, that objective is still in play for this week in case we close above 21954 on any day. So coming back to the weekly report, this is what we do. What we do in the report is we give a chart which is we give a weekly chart. There are two charts in the weekly report. One is the weekly chart which comes lower, and one is the same weekly chart which is divided into the daily time frame, so that we can see what happened on each day of the week. And then we cut it down on the 5 days. We have a small description for each day about what the auction did. And then we have a brief about the weekly profile, what the weekly profile is and what we can look forward for this current week. So as you can see, it was a triple distribution trend one down, the weekly profile of last week, and we made completely lower value. So this is last week's value. And as we spoke about last week, the most important level in a weekly profile when we are looking at spot charts is this weekly POC of 22054. So this would have been our reference on the upside today. And so if we stay above this, we can look, the auction could fill up the zone up to the negated FO of 22185 and then the HVN of 22306. Sorry, this is a typo here. This is 22306. And on the downside, we have Friday's buying tail from 21985 to 950, which will be the first support, below which we can Nifty can go in for a test of the initiative buying tail. So if you look at the weekly chart, we have this selling tail from last week, which is now a swing supply zone. And then we have these HVNs. One HVN is a 22306, one HVN is a 22446. As we were forming a triple distribution weekly profile, we have three distributions. We can see this is the first one, the uppermost one, where the HVN is at 22446. The middle one, the HVN is at 22306, and the lower one finally where we closed, and the POC here was 22054, which was also the weekly POC because the highest number of TPOs were formed there in the previous week. So this is what we get, and based on this we have these hypos for today. So this is what was there in the report, and we were ready with these levels for today. And similarly, we have a uh, structure for the Bank Nifty mentioned with the daily chart and a mention about what Bank Nifty did. And we had spoken about this VPOC of 47500 getting hit, which got hit late in the week uh, going in the past week. And we had also discussed on Monday how the first day, the Monday, was showing rejection at the weekly POC. So as we spoke, the weekly POC is an important reference, and rejection or acceptance of the weekly POC will set up the uh, bias for that particular week. So that is the reason this rejection at the weekly POC gave us the uh, thought that we would go lower for the week. And then Tuesday we had this initiative tail move away from Monday's value. This was also a long liquidation profile. Again, we made lower values on all 5 days of the week, with the POC also shifting lower in for each day. So this is what happened in Bank Nifty, and we had a similar description about the structure of the weekly profile. It was a double distribution trend one down and in a elongated range of 1939 points, and it was completely lower value with the DD zone. This is the DD zone, which is from 48784 to 48465. So this is again a supply zone, and any bounce which we come any bounce which takes us close to this zone, we can expect the sellers to strike back. So here the closing statement was, we can expect more downside in the coming week because we have closed around the lows. So immediate objectives being the weekly singles of 46750. So 46750 was one uh, support level, and this is the lower weekly POC of 46438. So similar to Nifty, we have the hypos for the Bank Nifty spot also given today. And what we did today, we will compare with these hypos on the chart, Fred. So I'll shift to the weekly chart. So you have the weekly profile chart on the left and the daily chart on the right side. So I'll just zoom out the weekly profile chart, and this latest the last the right the profile to the right hand side is today's auction. So what did we do today in Nifty? So if I take you only to the initial balance, the first hour range, what we did in Nifty was we started with an open test drive down, because we tested the POC of 22054, the weekly POC, and we probed lower. We broke below this lows of previous week, and we left an initiative selling tail, and we went on to test this A period buying tail of the week from 15th April to 19th April. So this was mentioned in the report. We had a reference of 21824, which we tagged in the initial balance. So what happened after the initial balance? For us to remain bearish, or for the sellers to remain in control, we should have made range extensions to the downside. But what happened? In fact, we made a pretty large IB range. The initial balance was quite a big one in Nifty today. The spot IB was, I think, 235 points. So it was quite a big IB range. So when we extended lower in the C and D, we could only make marginal new lows. So this was the first indication that the selling is, either the inventory is getting too short, too much of selling is happening, all of them have gone short because of whatever is being spoken about and whatever is happening. So it is become too bearish. So almost everyone who was trading in the market is on the short side. So because of which this exhaustion was seen with the similar lows in the C and D. So when does the auction show us the change of character? When it starts making higher highs on the 30-minute time frame. So when the D period took off this highs of B and got into this selling tail, that was the first indication that the auction is changing character. It is from going lower, now it is expected to probe on the upside. And then what it did was, in the E period, it went back into previous week's range. So this was the next confirmation. So as you can see, we went on to make higher highs till the G period, and the pullback which we made in the I period, stopped right at the previous week's low. So this is how market profile gives us important nuances, that once the character auction has changed the character, it will take support at previous points which it had left. So this pullback low ensured that we make a range extension on the upside in the J. So what did this do? It gave us a failed auction at the lows of today, because it tried to probe lower, but it could not. It stayed for less than 30 minutes below the initial balance low, and it went on to break above the IBH. So now we have a failed auction at the lows today, both in spot as well as futures. The spot low was at 21821. So you can see in the hypos, we had an hypo of 21824, which was the buying tail, ATPO halfback of 19th April. So if you see in the daily chart, we can go to the 19th April chart and see how we took support in this A period buying tail. This is that halfback of 21824, which was mentioned in the hypos. So this is where we took support, and we have left a failed auction in this zone where we had got initiative buying in the month of April. So what these buyers are trying to do is, they trying to make a comeback, and they have seen that the inventory is too short, and they have been successful in confirming a failed auction. And from today's failed auction, we have already completed the 1 ATR. The when 1 ATR, because the VIX is rising, the ATR is also going to go higher. And you sorry we have the option table in charts.vtrader.com, wherein the ATR of all the instruments are given. So you just need to go to the option table, and you need to go for this column ATR, and you have this over here. So if you see, the ATR for Nifty is 236 for spot. So if we take the 236 from today's FA, we have already done the 1 ATR move on the upside. The 2 ATR move will come higher at 22056 for the 1 ATR, and 22292 would be the 2 ATR objective. So what is the outlook now going forward after today's auction? Because we saw in the weekly report what we are looking at, and although we started started the day looking as if the downside is going to continue, this too rejection at the lows and a failed auction now has given us indication that the auction may balance in previous week's value. So what are going to be the objectives? So now the first objective would be we'll have to remain above this weekly POC of 22054 for the rest of this week. So as long as we are above this, we can look for filling up of this zone, because you can see last week profile, as I had already mentioned, we have an HVN at 22306, and we have a low volume zone between the 22306 HVN and the weekly POC of 22054. So we can look for a fill up of this zone with 22054 being the immediate support. So as long as we are staying above this, even the failed auction is in play, and we are looking for the 280 target of 22292. So this is how we will place ourselves for the session tomorrow, and uh, also the remaining days of this week. And if we are able to get above this 22306, then we will look for the fill up of this particular zone, because Nifty was a triple distribution profile. So we have low volume zones between these two HVNs and then between these two HVNs. So once we sustain about 22306, we will look for a fill up here and a tag of this HVN of 22446. So this is how we will look for the upside targets as and when the day progresses. So if today we are forming higher value than if tomorrow we are forming higher value than today, we will take tomorrow's value and POC as the support levels. For today, we have the support at 22054, and then today's POC of 21974. These are spot charts, so these are levels of spot which I am talking about. So on the downside, we again turn bearish if we come below 22054, and then we can look for a tag of this POC of 21974 and this pullback low. This is, I think, at 21930. The exact level will be there in the hypos which are published, which are updated in that weekly report, because we have hypos for each day. So as and when the day gets over, we will have the hypos for tomorrow updated in this box. So you can always come back and check for the references which we are looking at as as and when each day progresses in this week. So below this, we can again look for a tag of revisit of this failed auction of today. So this is what we are looking for in the Nifty spot. So in case you have any queries, I'll just take a pause here and answer any questions which are there. So if there are any queries, please feel free to post them. We'll also have a look at the Nifty futures chart so that we can see where the FA came at in that as well. So just as we wait for the questions, I'll just quickly open the Yes, because today is a neutral extreme day, and neutral extreme day, the VWAP is an important reference. Why is it important? Because the neutral extreme day gives us a cue that one of the parties has taken advantage. One party failed and the other party has taken advantage of that situation. So in today's case, it was the buyers who have taken advantage. So which is why they managed to close it at one extreme. So buyers are at an advantage today, so they will have to fight to for the advantage to remain in their favor. So that is the reason today's VWAP in futures chart would be an important reference. So neutral extreme and trend day VWAPs are always important, and we make a note of them and see what the auction does whenever it is approaching the VWAP of such particular important days. So this is the Nifty futures chart, and you can see even here we got an open test drive down, because we opened and tested this POC of 22140 from Friday, and we got rejected. We went on to break below previous 2 days lows, and then we even broke below the 19th April swing low of 21963. But as we saw in the spot, we could not extend much on the downside, and we stayed for less than 30 minutes below the IBL. And after this, the change of character came in the D period, which went above the highs of B, and E went back into previous session's range. So this was telling us that the auction has now changed character, and we went on to make higher highs into the close. And the failed auction in Nifty futures was at 21,900. So this 21,900 will be one swing reference now for the rest of this series, the May series, and we will see how we form value every day. So here now our reference would be the extension handle of 22140, the immediate reference on the downside, and because the POC has shifted higher, it tells us that some of the buyers would have booked profits. So the POC would be the opening reference for tomorrow, and this 22140 and the VWAP of today, which is at 22066, would be the important support levels. So as long as we are above this IBH and VWAP, we will look for upside. The 180R from today's FA in Nifty futures was a 22121, which has already been tagged, and the 280R comes to 22343. So that is what we will look for in case we are able to sustain above this POC tomorrow and take off this failed auction of 22230 from Friday. So I'll just enlarge this chart and we can see how we had left a failed auction even on Friday, and today's high was stalling right at that failed auction. So here is one more live example of how a failed auction acts as a important supply point or a demand point. So this FA of Seaside extension on Friday, which was a 22230 in Nifty futures, was still holding today. In spite of these multiple range extensions, you can see K, L, and M, all of them were stalling right at this Seaside singles. So this is the reason we give so much of importance to failed auction. And tomorrow, if we are getting acceptance above the 22230, then we are all the more bullish. So this is how we will take it forward in Nifty futures. So there's a question from Deepa Singh in the order flow chart, why the screen have to move according to can. You can increase the PPR. In the order flow chart, you have a PPR setting. You can increase the PPR when the market is moving too fast or it is in a bigger range. Yes, we did not close below the IBL, which is the reason it was not a confirmed failed auction at close. But still, this rejection was still valid because this is a seaside, which we give lot of importance to a seaside extension, because that is where the most of the laggards get trapped. So this is still a valid zone because this is still not been taken out. And for this failed auction to remain active, we should have been below this IBL. So which we did today. So staying below 22065, the 180R of that failed auction was coming to 22,000. So which we did tag today. We tagged 22,000, and then we were in fact looking to go more on the downside when the initial balance was forming today, but it was only because of that seaside marginal range extension and no follow up in the D is where the auction changed the character. Field auction is in play till the time the objectives are met. Once the objective is met, the work of the field auction is done. And yes, it does remain a important reference till the time it is not negated on a closing basis. So we have spoken about the failed auction and we saw a live case happening today. In fact, Friday also was a failed auction. In that failed auction also did its work. So as I spoke, as I mentioned, failed auction is just giving us a reference that one of the party has failed. So at 22230, the buyers had failed because the auction tried to probe higher, but they were not able to add in. So the sellers took advantage of its situation. And today at open, we again went below this IBL. PPR setting, you can have it as 2 or 3 based on the range of the day on 3 minutes. This is for Nifty futures. For Bank Nifty, you can have it as 4. I'll quickly go to the order flow chart here to show where the PPR is. It comes right at the top. This is the PPR and this is the drop down menu. You can change the settings of the PPR using this. So I hope this is clear. So this is about the Nifty futures and the Nifty. In case there are any other queries related to Nifty, the failed auction or the Nifty futures, you can please feel free to ask. Else we will shift to the Bank Nifty weekly chart and see what the Bank Nifty has got in store. PPR of 30 minutes would be 4 in case the range is too big. So it is suggested the PPR be double of what you're PPR of 30 minutes be double of what you're using in 3 minutes. So but make sure you don't increase it too much because that will reduce the volumes which are coming in. More volumes will appear at the same level. Now let us stick to the topic for today. We are looking at the weekly outlook and we are looking at the failed auctions. So let us go by that. We have an order flow session on Thursday this week. So we will have the questions related to order flow answered in that session. So because we get order flow signals on a daily basis, so we can show you the signals any day we have the order flow session on. So coming to the Bank Nifty weekly chart, you have the spot chart on screen. The weekly chart is on the left side and the daily is on the right side. So as we had discussed, we had formed a double distribution weekly profile down. And what happened in the morning, similar to Nifty, we broke below the weekly value and left an AP rate selling tail. We went on to break previous week's lows and we were expecting to test this buying tail from the mid-April week. So which is what we were expecting. But for that, we needed a range extension lower after the C side because we know seaside is mainly a con period and that is why we call it the doka period. We don't trust the seaside that much, so we would want a range extension to happen in the D period for us to confirm that the sellers are still in control if you're looking at downside for the day, especially when we have got an open where we've got a period selling tail, and today's was a pretty good one. So but what we did was we made the dreaded seaside which got rejected, and the D immediately got back into the ace singles. And then we went on to make a range extension in the G. So we have a failed auction even in Bank Nifty spot, and the lows of Bank Nifty spot is at 46983. So here today we are seeing live examples of how we had spoken how a failed auction shows us a change of trend. So when we were completely going lower from last week and we are looking for more downside, but this failed auction was telling us that maybe the downside is done for now and we can look for a bounce. It does not mean that the market has turned bullish, but we can look for a bounce and a balance this week. Whereas last week we were making lower lows on all days and value was forming lower, but this week although we opened weak uh, on the downside, but we have left this failed auction and confirmed this on a closing basis. So the Bank Nifty is also formed a neutral extreme and we have got back into this weekly value. So we are not that bearish now, although the POC shifted to the highs, which is at 47740, which will be our reference in Bank Nifty spot for tomorrow. And this extension handle of the neutral extreme, which is at 47500, which was also previous weekly POC, which we had spoken about, were getting tagged last week. So we can see how the earlier important references are again coming into play. But once they get negated, we will wait for fresh information like this today for that to again become a valid reference. So now we have this as a valid reference because this is where the auction confirmed the neutral extreme today. So this will be our support for the rest of the week. And as long as we stay above that, we will look for the 180R and 280R. Just like Nifty, Bank Nifty also has completed the 180R objective of upside. The 180R was at 47646 and the 280R comes to 48309. So I'll just give you a small example of how these objectives overlap in market profile. So 48300 is also a VPOC, a POC which has not been tagged. So in case the auction continues the upside probe, this is a very likely objective for this week. So it also is the 280R from today's FA. So we can see how the failed auction is giving us a objective which also the market profile references already has. And these levels have also been mentioned in our report, which we update on a daily basis in the spot hypos. So you can always go back and check them out there. So what say the strong open failed to give a range extension, and here we went on to uh, see the buyers take advantage of this situation and close the day in their favor. So that is the context for today, and we will look for upside probes. Although we have closed above the weekly POC in Nifty, the weekly POC in Bank Nifty is still above at 48087. So that will be one important reference for tomorrow in case we are sustaining above this POC and probing higher. And we have this monthly POC and the April series VWAP and the rollover point marked as KRLs in this market profile chart, which will also be important levels as and when we are getting there. We will need to see whether these levels get accepted or whether we are getting rejected at these zones. So this will set up the uh, bias for that particular day. In case we are getting rejected from this monthly POC, then we can look for lower levels coming in. So this is how we will need to take it day on day. And because this failed auction is in play, extension handle in POC would be the important reference for tomorrow. So this is what Bank Nifty is about. And the outlook for the coming week is similar. The POC and the extension handle on the downside, whereas on the upside, sustaining above this will get us these references. 47994 is the monthly POC, 48176 is the April series VWAP, which is also coinciding with the sell side selling tail from 9th of May. And 48300 is the untouched POC from 7th of May. So these hypos are already there in the weekly report. You can see on the upside, we already have these hypos. We have gone on to tag this POC of 47839, which is where we have closed today. So which is where the highs were today. So we will need to get accepted above this for us to get to this 47965 and the weekly POC of 48087. So this is how we will need to take the Bank Nifty spot for this week. And because VIX is high, we are getting moves on both sides. So we will need to be very quick and we will need to be very clear with our understanding of what is happening in the market. And these nuances will help us to keep our bias intact. So any questions about the Bank Nifty spot chart, you can please feel free to post before I shift to the Bank Nifty futures chart of today, and then we can wind up the session. And in case there is any question which was left unanswered, you can just please post it again. So, so I'll just increase the TPO size of the Bank Nifty chart so that we can have a clear view. So here we have the Bank Nifty futures chart, and the open was an open test drive. We tested this POC of Friday and we broke below in the first 15 minutes itself. So it was an open test drive. We went on to make lower lows in the B period, and I'll just give you a small nuance of how where we took support in the C side. You can see this VPOC line of 47209 from 30th of April. So this, as I said, the untouched VPOCs are objectives when the auction is moving in that direction. So the C side made a low right at this POC and it could not sustain. So it gave a C side, it hit this objective, and then it also gave us a signal that the downside is done for the day. So Bank Nifty confirmed a failed auction in the G period itself, after which the pullback low of I period took support right at the scene of crime of today. You can see B and C made similar highs before D got into the A side A period selling tail, and you can see how E and I have taken support right at that zone. So this is change, showing us change of polarity. So what was supply in the morning hour and the C period is become support in the afternoon in the E and I period. So when the I period took support there and the J period went on to make new highs, we were very clearly in for a close at the highs because the day structure was a neutral extreme. So we knew that the market would close around the highs. So the failed auction in Bank Nifty futures is at 47,200 and the 180R was at 47,813, which it is already tagged when it made this J period move. And you can see the extension handle was nearby there. And the 280R from today's FA comes to 48425. So how do we take it going forward? We will have this extension handle and VWAP of today as important support levels. And as long as we stay above these references, we will look for an open and acceptance above this zone. And once we are above this, you can see how there is a VPOC which has not been tagged at 48415. We saw a similar thing in spot which was at 48,300. So you can see how the 280R target of the FA is also coming to a same place. So this is how the market profile and failed auction works together and gives us very important setups and which we can look to trade in live markets. So now we know as long as we are above this we are looking for this as an objective. So that is what we will do when we get into live markets tomorrow again and see for probable trades in that direction. So when does that view get negated? Once get we negate this extension handle, we get back into this, we break below this VWAP, then this view of 48415 VPOC getting tagged will get negated. So this is how we are looking for uh, auction wise in the current week. And as and when a particular day gets over, we will again revisit the levels and revise the business areas or the hypos. So any queries, guys, please feel free to ask. So we can have a quick question answer session before we wind up for today. So coming back quickly to the order flow chart, it does scale in and scale out automatically, but when the market is doing big moves, it is always better to increase this PPR and look at the longer term. And that is the reason we look at a combination of 30 minutes and 3-minute order flow. So 30-minute order flow, in case it is not fitting, you can just increase this PPR by one number in Nifty and get it fixed. And you have this scaling option. On the vertical side, you will have to go to the right side and you have this arrow mark which has come. You just need to use your mouse and decrease the size. And on the horizontal side, you have to get into the charts and do the horizontal scrolling. So here you have the entire 30-minute order flow you can see on one screen. So if there are any queries, please feel free to ask them, guys, about today's session, about the field auction, and about the weekly profiles. So just to have a quick revision about what we are looking for in Nifty, we are looking for this IBH of today, which is also the weekly POC of 22054, to hold for this week. So as long as we are above 22054, we are looking for upside references. And the upside references are 22185, which is that failed auction which got negated from last week. And then we have this HVN 306. 22260 was an extension handle. And these levels have also been mentioned in the weekly report where we have the high post for everyday marked up. And below 22054, we again can look for more downside with this small minor support being this pullback low of I period of today. So this is as far as the Nifty spot is concerned. Bank Nifty spot, similarly, the extension handle of J and the IBH would be our support zone for the week going forward. And we will need to get accepted above this POC of today for to tell us that the buyers want to continue to probe higher. And this weekly POC of 480487 and the other level of 48176 which we had seen along with this daily 48300 would be our upside objectives. So that's it from my side for today, guys. In case we have any queries, we have couple of minutes which we can use. Else we can call it a day today and close this session. So anyways, if you have any queries, you can DM me on Twitter also. My Twitter ID is @Uttam I'll be happy to answer queries related to what we cover in these sessions. And you can also go through the reports which we publish on the website. And even if you have any queries regarding anything which is mentioned in the report, you can feel free to ask us either in these sessions or on Twitter. So that's it from my side for today, guys. Thanks for joining in and have a nice evening. We'll be logging off now and let's catch up on Thursday where we have an order flow session and we will look at important order flow nuances with latest examples. Thanks for joining in.